right, we're going to get started because it's past noon already. Welcome, everybody. So glad you could be here today. We had we had a lot of interest in this webinar, so I'm glad you're a part of that. So thanks for being here. I'm Pastor Ed Treat. I'm the founder and director of the Center of Addiction and Faith, where we are working to awaken faith communities to a serious problem, and we want to help them engage more fully, teach them what to do and how to do it. But thanks for taking the time in the middle of your week to be with us for this particular webinar. Have you ever wondered why you do the things you do? Why you react that way? Ask yourself, why did I say that? Or why do I keep falling into old patterns? Or why do I know better but still find myself acting in ways I don't fully understand? The Apostle Paul wrestled with this very thing. Most of us have asked that question at one time or another. And sometimes, if we're honest, we don't just wonder why other people act the way they do. We wonder why we act the way we do. So today we're going to talk about that. That question matters deeply in a world of addiction, recovery, family systems, faith, and healing, because so much of what we do comes from places inside of us that we may not fully understand. Old wounds, old fears, old messages, old survival strategies, that all that internal dialogue that runs quietly in the background. So today we'll hear from author Karen Rubinstein, whose new book, The Return Way, finally an answer to why do I act this way, and a way to change. Her book helps us better understand our behavior and offers practical ways to address and change our inner conversations, those conversations that shape how we live, react, love, and heal. Before I introduce Karen, please drop your name and location in the chat page so we can get a sense for where everybody's from here today. And then following Karen's presentation of her book, we'll open it up for a Q&A. So if you have a question along the way, please enter it into the question button at the bottom of your page. There should be a Q&A button. You click on that, add your question, and then we'll get to those in order that they were given. So the sooner you get yours in, the more likely it is you'll get a response, because we can't always get to all of them. And then if you have a question at any point, and I didn't talk to you about this, Karen, is it okay if someone interrupts you and has a question while you're talking?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. That's
Great.
that's more than fun. I was going to have
So
the Q&A at the end, but yeah, if somebody has some burning question, absolutely.
wonderful, thank you. So if you do have a question, I ask that you don't just speak up, but if you use your raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen, it'll indicate you want to ask a question, and then we will call on you as soon as it's appropriate. Um, is that clear to everybody? You know how it all works, right? So let's begin with a centering prayer. I invite you to take a very deep breath and slowly release it. Plant your feet firmly on the ground and feel the earth. Know that you're connected to the ground. You're grounded. Place a hand over your heart where you regulate your nervous system and feel a connection with your higher power. And let us pray. God of compassion and truth, meet us in the places where we feel stuck, confused, defensive, or afraid. Help us listen deeply to one another, to ourselves, and to the quiet places within us that we're asking to be healed. And we ask that you would give us the courage to see what is true, grace to hold ourselves with compassion, and wisdom to change what needs to change. Bless our guest here today, Karen, and bless us as she shares her work. We pray. Amen. May it be so. All right, so I'm honored to introduce Karen Rubinstein with you today. Karen is the author of The Return Way, finally an answer to why do I act this way and a way to change. In her book, Karen helps readers explore one of the most human questions there is. Why do I act this way? I've been asking myself my whole life. Her work invites us to pay attention to the thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and internal dialogue that often drive our behavior, even before we realize it's happening. Karen, I'm really glad you're here. Thanks for taking the time to share your work with us.
Yeah, thank you, Ed. I'm so happy and I'm really honored to be here. I've been watching your webinars for a couple of years and I've seen really amazing people, authors of great books come on here. And I'm really, really happy. Like I said, very honored. So yeah, my book, The Return Way, is finally the answer to why do I act this way. And I'll go back to the beginning because this book is part lived experience and science combined. So basically, when I was growing up, I used to always think that everybody in the world had been given a guidebook for how to live life. And somehow I didn't get one. Um, so growing up, I lived in a very chaotic household. Um, a lot of fighting. It didn't feel safe. It was unpredictable. So early on, I would go to friends' houses and I'd I'd observe, like I was into human behavior. How do people interact? Because it was not what I felt was good at my house. So let me look. So I'd look at how parents interacted with their kids or with each other, how siblings got along. I was like a sociologist
Mm,
and then I'd watch TV and I'd look at the Brady Bunch and I'm like, well, they all get along and look what a happy family they are. Or, reruns of Leave It to Beaver and everything was kind of serene except for Beaver getting in trouble and the Waltons. Everything was just like a lot of communication, a lot of love and support. Um, so, I kind of had that ideal, like, but I wasn't finding it. And by my teens, I remember around 16, I wanted to run away. My mother found me making like calling a bus stop, finding a schedule. So I started a deep depression, a chronic depression that lasted most of my life. It began around 17. I also developed eating disorders. I was anorexic. And so, and I also picked up a new habit of running, escaping. So I ran away to college. I was the first one to live at school. I made sure. Um, and, later on after graduating, I ran away to LA. Or, or in my 20s, it was very chaotic in my 20s. I was job hopping, relationship hopping, everything. I didn't stay in place. I just kept thinking, somewhere out there, I'm going to belong and I'm going to find the answers to why I don't feel happy, looking for everything outwards. So that was my setup. And finally, I oh, and I have to say, one of the things I also developed in college, it was a coping tool, and that was alcohol because it made me feel better. It helped me feel comfortable in my own skin. So, like I said, the 20s were chaotic, and I was also very vulnerable. I was really looking okay on the outside. I was like growing up, I put on masks to survive in my home. I put on the masks of the good girl, the perfectionist, the A student. So I looked good. I knew how to behave. I had seen it on TV. I had the masks on, but somehow predators could sense that my outside was not matching my inside. And I became prey to a few very scary situations, sexual abuse, rape. They could sense it in me. So the 20s were chaotic for me until I went to a party and I met a boy there, now my husband of 36 years. And what I liked about him, he seemed safe, gentle, kind. And one of the first things I said to him was, I like you. You're normal. I was looking
mm.
for normal. I was looking for safety. I was looking for something. Barry was going to provide it. So I threw myself whole hog into building the perfect life. Now I was going to live out the dream of those TV shows and the families I grew up with, all the people that were doing it right. I was going to do it right. So I got the colonial home. We actually put a picket fence up, got a station wagon, a Volvo wagon. I got a couple of Labradors. And I'll tell you, in a nice neighborhood, it looked picture perfect. And yet I was miserable. I was depressed still. I had my sleep disorders that were chronic. I had um, night terrors, sleep paralysis. I was not happy. I had it all. I couldn't understand. The other thing is, my dear Barry and I were bickering. I felt like the Bickersons because I knew how to pick a partner, but I didn't know how to relate. I didn't know how to do it. I knew what it looked like. So I was concerned that my picture perfect life, we wanted to have children, and I wasn't going to duplicate my childhood home. So I went to marriage counseling. And unfortunately, that was my final predator. He crossed every line, and it's called therapy abuse. And my picture perfect world blew up. I remember just sitting on the floor thinking, I don't know how to piece this back together. I was filled with shame and I did what I always did. I ran. I moved. I talked to, luckily Barry followed me. It was a very hard time. And that is when I dove into alcohol. I was so frightened. I was in such pain. I didn't, I was afraid. I was at the lowest ever. So I became agoraphobic. I had this cute little house up in Massachusetts with a little peek of the ocean, a little view. I didn't enjoy it. I was drinking and eating pizza all day. I wouldn't leave the house except to get a stack of books. And I disappeared. I just disappeared. Um, so, and I gained 100 pounds in 1 year. It was very hard. So Barry we went back to New Jersey and I was a full-blown alcoholic, but I didn't know. I thought, well, now I'm back in New Jersey. I'm just going to stop drinking. And I tried and I couldn't. Like, who knew that drinking boxes of wine and then vodka, like constantly, made you addicted? For some reason, I just never thought, I just didn't think. So I tried hypnosis, I tried therapy. I'd always been into self-help books. I went online with moderation programs. I had magnets attached to my head and they thumped my brain, hoping that I would stop drinking, and nothing worked. And finally I was like, well, I guess this is it. Then I had my rock bottom, and that was over 6 years ago. And I would say that it smashed the masks that I had, all my facades. And when I went to rehab for a few months, I remember one of the first things that they said was that alcohol was not the problem. It wasn't the issue. And I thought, well, if alcohol was not the issue, what the heck is it? And so I had to do more research on that. And so I dove deep. As you could see, like I love research. I was always into human behavior, self-help books. Now I went deep. Now I got into the 12-step work, started cleaning up my act and reading Johann Hari and Gabor Mate, eating books and working on myself. And I liken it to gardening. Um, like I felt like my garden had grown full of weeds and rocks and debris when I first started it. And I was cleaning up and throwing out rocks and pulling weeds, some more deep than others. And then just do the next right thing. I was taking my seeds, planting them, um, and hoping and, having faith that God would grow what was necessary in my life. And that was, I felt, and the thing is, I had more emotional and spiritual growth and recovery than I had in years of therapy or self-help books. And I'm not saying that those are bad. they brought an awareness, but the work I was doing was deeper, deeper, deeper. And so I'm working myself. I have about 3 years in. And one day I'm looking at Barry and I say, you have a spot. What is that mole on your head? Why don't you go to the dermatologist and get that off? And it came back stage 1 melanoma. And within 4 months, it rapidly went to stage 4. And it was very, very scary. It was so aggressive that the doctors looked very grim, and one of them said that it was dire. And then I was advised to get my papers in order. And unbelievably and strangely enough, people were saying to me, how are you doing this? Like, how are you handling this so well? How are you so calm? And honestly, I said to Barry, I go, either I've lost my mind or what I'm doing is working because it wasn't a facade. I I handled it. I was there for Barry. I never complained. Of course, I would tear up. I would go to a morning meeting and admit that it was hard. But at night, when I woke up and I was full of fear, that is when I would pray and a peace would come on me. And that deepened my faith. And I crossed a line from a faith in my God to trust. I trusted and I let it go. Whatever was going to happen was going to happen. So, anyways, then people were like, I want what you have. How did you do it? And I thought, I don't know. Like, I've just been doing so much. How did I do it? And after a while, I really did. I wanted to know. Like, I wanted to write down the steps. How had I done this? And I thought other people would want to know since they were asking. And I thought, I'm really going to take the time. So let me hit the screen share. Where am I? Hold on. Oh, here it is. Okay. So I came up with a method and I came up with an acronym. It has 6 steps to it. So last year I was like, oh, what could be the acronym? And I was so happy with what I came up with. And it's the return way. And return is for reveal the story, explore the thoughts, trace the pattern, uncover the fear, rewrite the story, and nurture the truth. And I'm going to tell you a little in real time, um, a story where I applied it. I use this method daily almost when I'm questioning my behavior, when I'm in a feeling of fear or anger. So reveal the story. So I know now if I get a sense of fear or anger or some discomfort inside, I know that it's a me thing. I've learned more enough that the world and other people do not affect me. I affect me. So it's a no, my emotions now are a signal to stop and pause. And let's reveal the story. Pastor Ed and I were talking. We were both journalism majors. So who, what, where, when, and why? Let's be let's pull back. So I will tell a story. It happened a few months ago. I'm a member of the National Speaker Association, and I was taking a class on speaking. It's called Speaker U. We had a final project, a 15-minute presentation that was going to be videotaped. A big deal, final graduation. The day before the videotaping and graduation, we went into New York and we reviewed each other's speeches. And I thought, I was like Ralphie on the Christmas story. I was like, I have the best speech, and everybody is just going to like hoist me on their shoulders. Oh, yes. Oh, no. They gave me constructive criticism. And all I could hear was, I, I, I don't belong here. So that is it. So explore the thoughts. So what happened was I was so upset. I just left the class and I jumped on a train and I went home and I thought, I'm not going to do this. So then I did the return. I got home and it took a couple of hours of crying. And then I did the return method. I explored my thoughts. What thoughts, because the thoughts cause my emotion. The thoughts I know come before an emotion. So what thoughts were going through my head? I'm not good enough. I don't belong in that group. Others are better than me. And I could hear a real strong one. Who do you think you are? So those were the thoughts that were driving my actions. But let's go. Don't come out of nowhere. Let's trace a pattern. Now, I have spent most of my life comparing myself to others and usually deciding that others were better or more authoritative than me. So it was an old pattern. So I know it wasn't coming just from this situation. This is a long established thing in my life. Now, the next one, okay, so I know my thoughts. I discovered it is a pattern in my life. What is the fear? And people would be surprised at this and bear me up that people would think, well, you're afraid of public speaking or you were afraid of criticism. Yeah, that's a part of it. But I have dug deeper, and the garden I referred to is I spoke of weeds that have such a deep root that if you don't pull them, my deepest root, my deepest fear is having no value and that I don't matter. And that fear will pop up from time to time, and it did that day. I don't matter. So then, okay, now I have an awareness. Now, okay, this is all going on in my head. Okay, let's rewrite that story. I already wrote a story that was pretty grim. Now, this is more than positive thinking. This is more action oriented. So rewrite the story. I do have value. What's my biggest fear? Let's rewrite it. I have value. I show up every week and I write on Substack and I have a big audience. I'm exposing myself every year. Or every week. I'm contributing. I'm doing service. Another thing, I have a husband who loves me. I have dear friends and family who love me. And you know what? My ace of spades is always I have worth and I am loved because I am a child of God. That's, you can't beat that one. Now let's nurture the truth. Now, nurture the truth, it's not just sipping tea or doing yoga, and those things are wonderful. Meditation, prayer, yoga, anything to care for yourself, your spirit. But what I'm realizing is that nurturing the truth is taking your core, facing your fear, overcoming your fearful thoughts by connecting to your core. Face your fear that I didn't have value and that I don't matter. So, what did I do in that situation? The one that I ran back home. Well, the next day, I went into New York and I stood in a crowded room in front of a videographer and I delivered my speech. I faced my fear and I did it. Now, early on in recovery, I remember hearing, if you want self-esteem, do esteemable acts. This is similar. Face your fear. That will bring change. If you feel that it's a hard thing, one of the other key that I add to facing my fear, I remember that the opposite of fear is faith. And the faith allowed me enabled me to get through the cancer scare with Barry. And faith is the key that had been missing in my life. So facing the fear and faith. Now, The easiest way I could describe what I'm talking about with fear and roots and what happens, when I said people would think, oh, you're afraid of public speaking. Well, that's true. From 14 to about 5 years ago, I physically could not speak. My throat would close up. That is what fear did to me. God finally said, oh, you can talk now. So I'm very happy about that. But you have my dandelion in my beautiful garden that I keep weeding. These dandelions keep popping up. Well, that's because I'm not getting to the root. I still, to have to a point, have that feeling that I don't matter, and I'm constantly tending to that dandelion. So you could have a different flower with the same root. The head of it would be what you noticed, like fear of public speaking, and the stem would be because it feels threatening, and it's a fear of criticism, and the root is I don't matter. The flower could be a fear of rejection. The reason it feels threatening is people won't like me. The root is I don't matter. Fear of failure, looking stupid. I don't matter. It's the root. So that is what I have found through the return way. And that is the answer. Why do I act this way? And a way to change, because if I'm aware of what is driving me, that underlying fear, then I can realize it and I can behave differently because I can face that fear and walk through it. And the more times I walk through that fear, then the more I change. So today, I I no longer have chronic depression. I sleep well. I I haven't seen a therapist after going to a therapy from 23 to about 4 years ago. I have no medication. And so, like I said, for most of my life, I thought everyone else had a guidebook to life. And I never quite found one that I needed. So I decided to write one myself. And that's the return way.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was muted. I said some really great things and you missed it all. Uh, Thank you, Karen. That was tremendous. I feel like you and I are preaching out of the same school in terms of how we understand what happens to us as people. And what you had to share was there were so many points there that I could agree with. I was writing questions as I went, and I couldn't stop writing them, wanting to highlight some of the things you said. I just was notified that there is no Q&A button on our page. I don't know why that is, except that Zoom likes to trick us all the time. But if you have a question, go ahead, raise your hand and or just speak up. I think that that can work because it takes a while for people to get warmed up with their questions. While you're thinking about the questions you have, let me just take a moment to say a few things. I have to do my commercial for the Center of Addiction and Faith. We are only supported through the generosity of our members and participants. So if these conversations matter to you and you'd like to continue the work of the Center of Addiction and Faith, there's nobody else doing this exact work at the intersection of faith and addiction that I know of. And so we really do need to continue to have these conversations, continue to raise these issues because society doesn't like talking about them. And that's good reason for us to keep it going because we all want healing. And the only way we'll find it is if we keep talking. So I'm going to put a donate link in the chat page. And if you feel so inspired and moved and are able, I would really appreciate any kind of donation that you can make. I'm trying to talk and post something at the same time. Katie, can you get the donation link in there for us? That way I don't have to do two things at once. Uh, and then another way you can support our mission is I published a book recently. It's called The Lie That Kills Us. It's got it's really an unpacking of how denial works in each of us and in our society and why we pay such a high price for denial. That's one piece. And then if you uh, this would also help do our work. And this is a book that is sort of a leader guide for how to do this in a faith community or any kind of community to talk about addiction and all related matters. So I encourage you, if you have a pastor, you go to a church, you have a pastor, buy a copy and give it to the pastor. Could be transformative for you and your church. But thank you for making this work possible, for your ongoing support by being here and by the your ability to keep us going. So thank you. So let's turn to questions. I don't know if there's any in the chat page. There's some thank yous there. And this is a very educated and bright community that we draw each week, but they don't really come up with a lot of questions, I've found.
Oh,
Margaret's got her hand
oh,
up.
okay.
Thank you, Margaret, for getting us started.
Hi, Karen. So nice to meet you. Hi,
Yes.
Pastor Ed. Thanks for hosting, Karen. And I'm looking forward to buying your book, Pastor Ed, and I might buy yours too, Karen. The speakers are great that we have and the authors. And I guess what I'm intrigued by is I wrote the book that I needed. As a clinical therapist, there's a lot of little elements like CBT or narrative therapy or Tara Brach's Rain but the return is something unique. It's the way you've packaged it. It's unique. And I'm just so uh grateful that you received this method, put it together, the book that wasn't written. And for me, the books that aren't written is the blessings of Alzheimer's and the blessings of having a child with addiction. And I think that the blessing of suffering is that book that I'd love to write. And all I've ever done is progress notes, but 30 years of many little biographies. I'm really intrigued by Pastor Ed hosting so many authors. I'm like, okay, maybe I should write at some point. But my aspiration to write isn't the question. The question, Karen, is how did you view your alcoholism as a gift, if indeed you did? And did you feel that you would be where you were today without it? Did it have something really very positive? Was it a blessing in some way? What an odd question, but that's the question I would love to ask lots of people because I think it might be a common experience.
Yeah, I love that, Margaret. Thank you so much for that because I call myself at every 12-step meeting, I say, "Hi, I'm Karen. I'm a grateful alcoholic." Because when I look at my life, like I said, I questioned everything and I was filled with depression, anxiety, um, and I was suffering. It was, and I could have gone on like that. Except for the trauma that made me jump into a bottle. I could have kept that home in the Volvo and gone on my way, but I would have suffered with that underlying depression. The the recovery, see, for me, like when I said oh, maybe I didn't, you know what? I forgot that part. Humility. When I went into recovery, one of the big things that happened to me, and I'll tell you this quickly. I tried to escape. Like I said, I'd like to run away, and the rehab was not up to, I thought it was going to be a spa vacation, but no, it was this old house filled with women, no chef, no pool. And I wanted to run away and go back home. And I called my husband and he came to clinical. And I went into the clinical director's office and I went in all storming. And I said, I don't like this place. I don't like sleeping in the living room. I don't like living in a house with 14 women. Where's the pool? I don't belong here. And he looked at me and he said, I hear a lot of eyes in your statement. He goes, why don't you look at your husband and ask him what your alcoholism has done to him? And I looked at Barry and he had tears in his eyes. And he's like, Car, you got to stop running. This is the place for you. If he had said yes and I went home, I don't know where I would be. But that act of humility broke something. In fact, when I think about it, Christ never went to the kings or to the high priest to tell his parables. Who did he reach out to? The poor and the sick. And why was that? Because they were humble, they were reachable, and they were teachable. My alcoholism and into recovery made me reachable for the first time in my life. So yes, thank you. I forgot to tell that in my story. So I really appreciate it, Margaret. And I appreciate if you go, in fact, I have on the slide here, that's a link to or a QR code to my website. And if you go on the Return Way page and scroll down, I have like a few pages of the science and psychology behind the Return Way that you might like to read. And thank you again.
Yeah, so just as a reminder, we do record these webinars and these will be available on our YouTube channel and on our website. And I will send a link to everybody who's registered after we get it edited and ready to go a couple of days after this event. But also we'll attach a copy of the slides that Karen presented, just so you know you'll be getting all that. Quinn Sanderson, Pastor.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Karen. This morning we had our men's Bible study, and we were in Romans 6, and the person from workingpreacher.org raised the question in my research: what is your analogy for sin? Check in with your audience. And I've been thinking in the last several years, my analogy for sin is more like addiction. It's more like a power that takes over. And I think out of your experience, you were maybe saying different words, but that our society seems to be hung up on, we all have this free will. And if we just think about things like self-help and whatever, we can kind of deal with these things. But when it comes to addiction, that's why I like the 12 steps calling higher power. You're dealing with a power, not just a substance.
Right.
Anyway, I thought my fledgling thoughts, what you were saying in different words, kind of affirmed what I'm where I'm at right now. But thank you for sharing, Karen.
Oh, yeah, thank you. And actually, all I could think of for me, the sin would be anything that comes between me and my God. And for quite a while, my addiction, my worshiping the bottle was my false idol. So yeah. And now, and again, I'll go back to Margaret and is life better, like since recovery. I'm aligned. I'm aligned body, mind, and spirit. I'm on such a healthy path. The path that, I've Pastor Ed, when we were interviewing for Beach Come On, he said, "Is this a spiritual journey?" And it is, because by uncovering and going deep and shedding the layers, shedding the mask, shedding the layers of ego, and coming into my core. My core is love. Love is God. My core is the shared unity that we all have. So yeah, no, that's beautiful talking about sin. Absolutely. Alcoholism for me was my God. And I'm living a life of joy and peace. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Quinn. Melvina, you have a question.
I don't know if it's a question, but I'll. So thank you, Pastor Ed, for this forum. One, and two, Karen, thank you for sharing your piece of your life with us. So you started out talking about you grew up thinking that everybody had a playbook. Everybody knew how to play the game of life.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's like a normal thought. Like everybody else, the grass is always greener on the other side until you go across the street, and then you look at your grass and it looks greener than where you're standing, kind of, right?
Oh,
But something I like that you are presenting is about this thing called fear
mm,
that cripples and paralyzes. You know, even being in recovery 36 years, still fear looms large. And I know it doesn't really, like faith and you said it, they kind of live together. I know that. And my fear doesn't cancel my faith, but it definitely neutralizes it sometimes.
mm,
Right. It keeps me from moving toward what I want.
right.
So yeah, fear, and I don't know if that's based in self-centered fear. I don't know what I know, like I don't know what that's based in, but a friend of mine, we've been on this journey talking about this. It's like every topic this week. Does the universe have perfect hearing and perfect seeing? Yes.
Yeah.
Is the universe conspiring to bless me even in this moment as you present your work to us? Yes. So I really just want to say thank you for um, kicking the door in just a little bit more. Thank you.
Ah,
on my,
thank you.
on my
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks. It's funny because we're on from what I understand, and now there's a dispute on it, but the science had said that we're only born with two fears, the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises, and there's survival skills for a baby, for an infant. And then we make up all the others. Um, and what helps me is two things. I used to be so afraid of the world because I thought the world was affecting me. Now I know it's inside. That's one thing that helps. It's not the world, it's me. I'll work on. The world, that's God's territory. And the other thing is that we only, from what I'm discovering, we only have a handful of fears. And that's what I was trying to demonstrate. I just put the dandelion slide in together this morning. But the dandelion, I'm trying to demonstrate. The fears can appear in different ways. Like my public speaking really was a feeling of not mattering and not having value. So once I know, and this is such a great tool for me by doing the return way and doing this method over and over and over, because it took a while to realize the pattern in my fears to know that this fear, I can look at the feeling that I had of not mattering or feeling that I don't have value on so many life decisions. And when I realized that a lot of my life decisions were based in fearful thoughts, well, that didn't go well. So now that I can connect to my heart and my true core self, I'm making wiser decisions. That is part of it. So feeling the fear, yeah, like fear doesn't really go away, not for me. It keeps popping up in different ways. It's recognizing it, leaning into it instead of hiding, which I did with alcohol, leaning into it, doing even a small thing. Like, I mean, honestly, look at me. I'm talking on this. Did I feel fear about it? Yeah, yeah, until 5 years ago, I couldn't even talk. But you know what? Now I do it, and it moves me further. There's more emotional and spiritual growth. And you know what? Another thing I always try to get away from, it's not about me. I have to get it like that. That's such an egotistical thing. It's not about me. What can I do today to be of service? So anyway, constantly growing. But thank you so
As
much,
you were talking
Melvina.
about, fear, I was remembering when I was thinking about doing my fourth step in AA that I was looking for how to do that, and I was reading in the big book, and it was taking all these issues. It was showing an example of all these issues and showed how they all broke down to fear, and
Mm,
everything was fear based. And I was kind of at that time in my life, I thought, I don't believe that, I don't buy it. But the longer I've been in recovery and the more I've worked on myself, the more I realize it really does boil down to fear. I mean, fear is what drives us into hiding. It's what drives us into denial,
yeah.
and
Here. Yeah.
it's a big piece. Yeah, and then in Scripture, one of the most common phrases that you hear from above is "Don't be afraid." Be not afraid, fear not.
Yes.
And so
One of
it's,
my favorite songs.
yeah. Bob, you posted a question and I can't find it now. Do you want to articulate what you were asking about? Faith, oh, here, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks again, Karen, along with everybody else. When, what, how did you connect your faith with the as a solution to the desperation that you were dealing with relative to your depression and your addiction? What triggered that? It's like you found a treasure buried in a
Uh,
field, you know?
Absolutely. Now, I wrestled, and thank you, Bob. I love this because honestly, I took my faith for granted. I had a very close relationship when I was a little girl. Where was my oasis at night in prayer? And then I would talk to God like he was my best friend. And I had such a deep connection. And then somewhere along the line, I just was like, yeah, I'm Catholic, I'm this, whatever. And then my thing was trust. I could have faith. I didn't have that trust. And do you mind if I tell a little story? Because I love
Yeah,
this one.
please.
Okay.
Mhm.
So in the 1800s, there was a famous aerialist. He was the first one to walk a tightrope across Niagara Falls. So he became known for this, and people, thousands, started building up. They'd come every week to watch him. And after a while, he was getting bored. So he would do things like he would walk on his hands, or like he actually got a little table and he ate a meal on the rope in the middle of the falls. Then he got a wheelbarrow. Oh no, then he put his manager on his back and he carried the manager across the rope. Then he got a wheelbarrow. And the manager got in the wheelbarrow and went across on the rope. Well, the wheelbarrow was a normal stunt, and he started doing this all the time for year or for however long he did it. He would ask people that were watching, who will volunteer to get in the wheelbarrow? And no one ever did because they had faith he could do it, but they didn't have trust. And I feel like that was me with God. So what really cracked me open with that, I would have to say I had dug deep when I thought I was going to lose my husband. And that was when I really, really, I found peace. I don't, I'll have to think more on that, Bob. Like, was it a big revelation? All I know is that when I would wake up at 2 in the morning, so scared, and I would just say, and with absolute belief, I would say, okay, God, whatever is going to happen, you know better than I. And then I would go, the best thing was gratitude. And that's a whole recovery program, 12-step thing, gratitude. I would start to pray my gratitude and my blessings right then and there. That would get me choked up, that I had him and that he was there. And I would fall back to sleep peacefully. I absolutely crossed. If God had that wheelbarrow across Niagara Falls, I'd be like, okay, God, I'll go with you. It changed me. And that has brought me profound peace. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have a question, or I don't know if it's a question or a comment, but yeah, it's a question. Um, we're watching a show called Doc Martin. And if you're familiar with it, if you're not familiar with it, it's based in England, and this doctor is on the spectrum, I think, and he just is mean to people, and he's really abrupt, and he's just really got some strange quirks. He's just a strange bird, but he's a really good doctor, so people put up with it. But as the show goes on, you realize that he's had this awfully traumatic life. His
Mm.
mother, his parents wanted very little to do with him, and he was told all kinds of awful things. And so, in the program we were watching last night, his wife was trying to get him to talk to a psychiatrist or a psychologist, and he said, "Why? I had a perfectly healthy childhood." And I was struck by that because I had thought I had one too until I started to dig into my pain and realized, oh my gosh, my childhood wasn't normal. I think we think our childhood is normal, and uh, but I think there's a lot of an inability to see it. If it was abusive or traumatic, we don't want to go there, so Plus, we have nothing else to compare it with, really. I mean, if that was your childhood experience. Um, what was my question in there? Why is it so hard for people to see the trauma that they really experienced?
I, honestly though, I am serious. Like I would go to friends' houses and I was a sociologist. So I always thought there was something off with my family. At
Mm.
7, I thought I was adopted because I didn't understand how I ended up there. And seriously, I did watch the Brady Bunch, like, well, look at them. Like I just always thought something was off. It was so angry. And then we would go to my grandmother's and everybody would put on like a good face and it was all nice. And I'm like, well, this is the way it's supposed to be.
Mm.
So I just felt a disconnect at a very early age.
That's funny when you mentioned Leave It to Beaver. I remember growing up thinking that's absurd. There's nobody's like that. I mean, I just thought it was ridiculous. I said Beaver would do things, and I think he didn't even get a beating. And nobody's like that. Jenny, you've got a question. Go ahead.
Oh,
Hi, my name is Ginny, and I'm delighted to be here today. Hi, Karen.
hi, sweetie.
Thinking about this as a recovery meeting,
Mm.
which actually it is, because that's my question is, when you started to put the return method together, to me it's kind of like parallels like the 12 steps. Like each part of your method touches upon walking through the steps, but written in your own way of understanding, because you were guided through the steps too, or Dharma, or smart recovery, or some sort of recovery that you were working with, and with addiction, and like rewriting your truth. Gosh, I have some of the notes from when we were taking class. Reveal your story, right? Um, you
Thing.
know, oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
No,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
somebody has their mic on. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Thank you, Ed, for putting this together. But it just hit me that your return method, to me, looking through it, touches upon a recovery program too, because that's huge in your life. And with being in a program, and that I know you work so diligently, that's where you find faith also. That's where I found my higher power, who I call God. And so this is brilliant, and thank you for doing this. As Ed said earlier, there's not a lot of this talk with faith and addiction, and it's really awesome that you're doing this. Thank you.
Thank
But
you.
that's my question. Did you kind of pattern this towards specifics in um, a recovery program?
Yeah. Oh, let me think. Thank you, Jenny. And it's so great to see you. I see some of my ladies for my Saturday morning. I started an online women's meeting, and so I see a few faces. Yeah, recovery. I always, yeah, recovery for me has been the doorway into a broader spectrum because an excellent question. I'm so glad you brought that up because it started with that. And what happened was somewhere along the line, like I said at the end of my talk, I no longer have depression. I don't have so many the PTSD. I had double PTSD from my childhood and from the trauma of therapy abuse. I don't have these anymore. And I thought, oh my gosh, if I knew what I know now,
Mm,
I wouldn't have picked up. I'm
mhm,
almost guaranteed I wouldn't have picked up. I would have
mhm,
had the coping tools. I would have had the skills. I would have had the life knowledge. So I thought to myself, broaden this because I suffered needlessly with depression and PTSD and obesity and eating disorders and sleep. Like I suffered for so many years. And I like to say at times that I am now the person that I needed years ago.
mm.
So,
So
yeah,
beautiful.
thank
Yeah,
you. So,
sure.
oh,
So we're running short on time. We have two hands up. I want to make sure we get to them both. Gail, do you have a question?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I was having a hard time finding my unmute button.
Yeah.
It's more a comment. In looking at the dandelion, I work with women in prison. I run a contemplative prayer and also a spiritual direction group. And the majority of the women that are there because of crimes related to addiction. And I can see this, and the addiction is based on underlying trauma, which many of them have not identified. They've been through different programs, but unfortunately, they don't address the trauma. And I can really see that dandelion helping to identify those traumas and the fears that are associated with it that have led to addiction. The other thing I wanted to comment on the first, I think, person that asked you about, your addiction being like a blessing or a gift. I see this so many times with these women. They'll come in and they'll say, I'm here, I don't know why I'm here, and they're so angry. And they start coming to the faith groups, and they start realizing that there is, someone else that they can't rely on themselves, that they need to rely on a higher power and rely on God. And then that anger turns into, this is a blessing. Had I been out there, I'd probably be dead.
Yeah.
And so God put me here for a purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, I could look back at so many times that God saved me, and there were reasons why things didn't work out, or reasons why I went through what I went through. I feel like I have so much empathy and so much like, I don't know. Oh, you know what? Oh, I forgot. I sometimes say that I've been to hell and back so many times I could have been a tour guide.
I love that.
So, so I wrote these guidebooks so I could save you the trip. Yeah, no, everything. You know what? And I love in the big book, it's we don't wish to shut the door on it, but now I can't remember, but leave it open a piece. Yeah, whatever. I'm not going back anymore into my past, looking at the blow by blow and poor me and the pity pot. I look at it for the lessons that I've learned, nor wish to shut the door on it. Thank you, Gail. I really appreciate that. It also is a reminder to put if anybody wants the book, I put that up. But yeah, thank you, Gail.
Great. And then Tina, go ahead.
Yay!
Oh, before you go, Tina, I'm going to ask real quick. Somebody's asking if that online women's meeting is open, and is there information?
Yeah, it's a women's meeting for women in recovery. Please email me and I will send you the link for it. I'd be happy to. It's a lovely
Okay.
group of women. Yeah, and in fact, Tina, who has her hand up, is in the meeting. And Tina, can I tell you, Tina is the alumni of the year at the Karen Treatment Center. Is that okay to say, honey? Oh, of course I say it, but
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I will be quick. I do realize we're at the end of the hour. Tina and like I think Ginny almost said, I'm a grateful alcoholic. I share it. I recover out loud. So I met Karen at a spiritual retreat, which is so symbolic. I adore this woman so much that, meeting her back in October, I think we had crossed paths prior, but we really connected last October at a spiritual retreat, and then have just been bonded ever since. Karen, I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy to be in this journey with you. I love that your book, your workbook helped me to have another layer to my recovery, right? And even just today, I can speak, and I know it's 2:00. I'll be quick, which is tough for me. But anyway, I'll be quick. I'll be quick. The fact that today has been chaotic. It was like I had a home group meeting, and then I had a grief counseling session, and I've got our HVAC people here, all in the process, all these different things fitting into my day. But because of my recovery, because of Karen's return way, I don't need to act
like a crazy person. I don't need to get stressed out and overwhelmed by it. I can be like, you know what? Take each thing at a time. So I just wanted to be here just to, I'm so happy to support my dear friend Karen. I'm grateful, and thank you, Pastor Ed, for organizing this for her. And I could
Tina,
talk forever, but I'm not going to. I'm going to stop. I'm going to shut up now. Thank you
no,
so,
that's
so
okay.
much.
No, I appreciate it. You weren't paid to say any of that, were you?
No, no,
Okay.
I was not paid to say any of that.
Oh, so wonderful.
I'll send you the check tomorrow.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, honey.
Well, we are out of time. I hate to cut it off because I still have other questions, but if you would like to express your appreciation to Karen, go check out her website, but also use that react button at the bottom of the page to either applaud or send some love with a heart or some kind of sign that you appreciate what she's given us today. Wonderful. Look at all that appreciation.
Thank you.
All
I
that
really
love
appreciate
coming
this.
your
Has
way.
been lovely. And thank you for all the great questions. Thank you for the support. And thank you, Pastor Ed. And see, I never called you Father Ed today.
That's right. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, although I'm starting to feel like Father Time. But for me, here's the takeaway for today. Most of us are shaped by more than we realize, I think. We carry stories, wounds, fears, beliefs, and I don't think we all realize how much those things influence how we act, how we react, and how we relate to other people. And but we're not stuck there. And Karen gives us some really effective ways of going back through some of that and finding out what it is that's driving us and bring healing to it, because we all want to be whole and well. So I appreciate that very much. If you don't want to know more about our work, the Center of Addiction and Faith, it's addictionandfaith.com. And let me close with a prayer, and I'll let you all go on with your day. Let us pray. God of ongoing grace, help us all to notice the patterns that keep us stuck, the stories and the messages that keep us down, that are not true. Help us listen with compassion to ourselves and to each other, and give us courage to face what is true, strength to change what can be changed, and mercy for the long road of healing. Remind us that we're not alone and that return is always possible. Amen. Go in peace, serve the Lord.